Hi guys, this is Sadaka. It's morning time, and I usually don't do videos first thing in the morning because we all have to wake up first. And my face is puffy, and I've got, everybody I think expels a little bit of snot and mucus in the morning, and you've got this stuff. But I'm just thinking, like, what can we do energetically that is pleasant and also doesn't require a lot of motivation? Because everybody gets up in the morning and I think goes through these things, or maybe your body type is different and you're like incredibly dry in the morning and you have to have something. For me, I have I mean, it's not even a real like type anymore, and I don't know that anyone works with the Western humor system, but I'm a very phlegmatic type. I suppose that can be put into Ayurvedic terms or Taoist terms as well. I have yeah, I have that, and so I'm constantly like expelling things. I've gotten so much better since I've gotten away from dairy, but I've noticed that meat also creates mucus. And so that's something that I'm working out because, quite honestly, I have chef cravings. I'm a chef, not by profession, but by, activity. I love to cook, and I cook very well, not to toot my own horn. But it's more like a palate thing that makes me crave meat than my actual body, and so I'm sort of trying to get away from it. But I also did notice I learned a lot in the past month, you guys, about diet. And when I was just doing straight hot cereals in the morning and stuff, I would get to a very like just very calm, very stable state. But then because there wasn't so much vibrant energy in those cereals, and I wait too long before I eat because I was doing a lot of stuff. I'm creating music, I'm making videos, I'm doing all that. I would find that mostly, I want to say that it's blood sugar, but it's more than that because it's like extended blood sugar that goes through. It's not just, have a cup of juice and your blood sugar levels go up and you can think again. Um, because I had juice all the time, or at least I had it available to me and it wouldn't do that. But I would find that I would just get in this almost like whatever, this kind of almost like depressive state that I just very unmotivated and I didn't feel very vibrant. I'm going to start doing the Tibetan exercises again, the Tibetan rites, to really start to physically condition my body in a good way. Build up my shoulders again, which if I don't do anything, they get really small. My arms are very scrawny. Um, and build some muscle. I'm not, crazy about like working out and all of that stuff. And so just the things that I can do in my own space, in a very limited space, are what I want to do, what I want to continue doing. Um, but yeah, I learned a lot in that whole period in this last month, getting away from a lot of denser foods, a lot of meat, and just doing the hot cereals and things like that. And I don't do just plain hot cereals. I was adding honey, I was adding blackstrap molasses, I was adding egg yolk. So not completely vegetarian, obviously, but I don't care about that. But I do in the sense that I really don't think that. Well, it takes a very long time for my actual body, for my energy to actually crave meat, you know? So I'm thinking of that. I got a thing of organic, local, fabulous chicken breasts, no, chicken thighs, which is a little darker than meat that I typically prefer. Even though I like it, my body responds better to lighter meat, like chicken breast and stuff like that. And I got it and I put it in chili, and I had one of them in a beans dish, a lentil dish that I made, like Indian style, and it was super, super tasty. And now I already feel myself like, I don't want that anymore. Like, I don't think I need that. I don't think my body needs that, blah, blah, blah. Um, and again, being the type that I am, I get up in the morning after I've had this. I had the chili with chicken in it, not like I ate the whole thing, yesterday, and now I find myself clearing out all this stuff again. and feeling puffier than I have a couple days before. And first thing in the morning, I don't like having to deal with that, you know, and it just tells me that there's something in my system that shouldn't be in there. And I don't want to have to keep doing that to my body if it's unnecessary, you know. I don't plan on going whole hog vegetarian, but then it's like it's almost my natural state, just doing the grains, doing the cereals, doing the simple dishes that I make, vegetables, no onions, all of that, you know, it's like it just goes part and parcel with what my body really actually craves. And so, yeah, I'm getting there. Um, in that same vein, I don't know why just I started talking about diet. It's even like the mate, you know, it's like I'm gonna have the mate. It's a cool cup, right? I'm gonna have the mate, but without the milk, which I like the fat because it, as I said in some of my other videos, it makes the caffeine go through your body slower. Fat does if you drink them at the same time or anything like a mate latte. But at the same time, when I cut out the milk, I was noticing myself clearing out much faster of all of this snotty, phlegmatic stuff and this puffiness in the morning. I don't have a lot of like lethargy in the morning anymore, which is fantastic. But it's like your body still has to respond to the new chi that has come up with the sun. You know, it's a new day, continually renewing and renewing and renewing. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be like the sun or like that little new sprout that just rises up with the sun's energy in the morning. And most of us can't do that because we're fighting our own tendencies, we're fighting our own bodies, we're fighting our own bad diets, we're fighting our own drinking habits, we're fighting our own smoking habits, and that's not good. Everything that you do should um, not just go straight in hand with what am I should work in concert with your vitality, your energy, your vital energy, your purity, all of that. To be this type of person who actually feels good in the morning, you know. And it's not just a matter of being a vegan either, you know. Like that's when the energy practices come into play. Obviously, I have not had enough mate this morning. That's when the energy practices, like the Akadawa or Reiki or anything else, come into play. Because what else do we do when we first get up in the morning? We usually sit in front of our computers, which is what I'm doing right now, but I have a purpose, and play around on Facebook for an hour, maybe even more, and you know, sip our coffee as we're like, Mondays, you know, and that's fine, but it's not. I wanted to get back into this concept of what we feed ourselves first thing in the morning. And if our body is not receptive to what we feed it, and I mean physically, food, drink, and energy, um, then it's not going to help much anyway. But we have to get into that routine. We have to get into the routine of feeding ourselves good energy first thing in the morning. So what I wanted to do was what I consider to be very important, and it's one step in a new chakra sequence of mine using the Akandua. Um, I'm not trying. I am developing methods and techniques for people to use the Akadua that are interesting and unique. Because a lot of people don't naturally do this stuff experimentally. And let me explain that. There's no system, there's no framework around the Akadua that we can just hand you a pamphlet and say do these things. There are some books out there, and there's a new one out there which I've heard is very good, that do give you some techniques and ideas or whatever. But what I'm constantly telling people is you need to get creative with this energy. You need to use it in different ways. You need to combine it with stuff and see what happens. Just gonna check the chat, make sure that yeah, okay. Um, and by the way, you guys, I just wanted to let you know you have the freedom to chat and ask questions. Sometimes I forget to check the chat box, but please just try to keep it to what I'm talking about because if you have other questions for me, then you can just write me at white.sage.alchemy.com. Um, white.sage.alchemy@gmail.com. Sorry, and that's separated by periods. White Sage Alchemy. You should see the info in the video. Um, but you can ask me various questions there. But if it pertains to this discussion, um, hang on. Um, okay, so I have one comment from Linda. Hello, it's Linda. Good morning. Grass-fed butter. I have not heard of these things. I have heard, oh, yeah, actually, I was talking about that in one of my other videos, and that's what I mean. Using fat in butter, I mean, using butter, fat, slash, in coffee or tea, mate, whatever. I drink mate. I do drink coffee sometimes. It's more like a guilty pleasure now because it goes to my brain. But you're right. And that's the thing, which is fantastic, using fresh, wonderful grass-fed butter. That's the type of butter you should be using anyway, right? And you can put it in your coffee to slow down the uptake of caffeine into your system. If you just have a coffee without fat in it, it goes through your system like crazy and just does its thing. And then that's usually when you get like, kind of like off balance and jittery and stuff. If you use fat in it, and I'm a proponent of this, if you're going to, especially if you're going to have something very, very strong with a high amount of caffeine in it, and especially the type of caffeine that causes muscle tension, which coffee and tea do, um, having fat in it, an adequate amount of fat in it, because it slows the uptake of caffeine, and you will stay alert longer. I think caffeine is fine. It's one of the drugs that we have, at our disposal, and it's not necessarily a bad one. It lasts longer and you'll feel awake in a more stable way for longer and you won't crash as much. I crash on coffee. It's really bad, even if I use fat in it. So I'm a proponent of doing that with mate and all the teas as well. The original way of doing that is by adding heavy cream or half and half. Um, what Linda is talking about is actually adding butter. And a lot of people do that who work out very hard, as in the Western physical way of working out really, really hard, going on the treadmill and doing the CrossFit and the things and the weights and whatever, need that caffeine to really move things through the system. And when you do work out with caffeine in your system, it's going to be sped through your system much faster anyway. But when you have the fat, you have this like calorie load with caffeine, which wakes up your body, and it also allows you to do the work. So you're not eating a big old crazy breakfast, maybe just the light cereal, but then also with, coffee or tea with a high amount of fresh, good grass-fed butter fat in it. Then you can go and you can work out and you can do all those things and you won't feel so depleted afterwards. And it's actually a thing that people are doing now. So that's what I know about that. Um, so as far as energetic stuff, excuse me, I find a lot in, and please let me know how the mic is doing because I'm seeing the feed and it's like going past the halfway point. So I tend to talk very loud and I get excited anyway. If it's a little loud, I'll just back it up a bit and be a little more. Um, so the energetic stuff that I'm talking about, I find that when I get up in the morning, I have a sort of shadow. It's not a shadow per se, it's an energetic perception that you're still hanging on to things from your dream space. You're still hanging on to things that maybe from the night before. Because most of us don't typically, well, maybe this is just me, I don't know, I don't do this. I work until after midnight, and I'm thinking and I'm processing and I'm using my brain and I'm doing all of this stuff. And honestly, it has to do with external events going on in the world that I would rather not hear about all the time because I'm extra sensitive to that stuff and I get teary-eyed at least once a day because of these news stories that I have to process. Um, More than just teary-eyed, I get moved, you know, and I would rather not be moved by anything unless I choose to do that. I'm selfish that way. I'm very, very selfish and jealous for my own energy and my own energetic state, and I think there's nothing wrong with that because being sensitive people, it's difficult to deal with this world. And so when I get up in the morning, very often I find that I have this energetic lag. Like it's not just being tired. It's not just getting up. It's not just not having any food in my system. It's not just not having any caffeine in my system. It's like there's stuff hanging around that I don't want to be there. So, what do we do? This is almost no, I don't want to say that. Different types of Akadua tend to work on different things in the body. And when I say body, I mean bodies. I should be saying bodies. Because usually when I say body, I mean physical body, the one you can see right here. When I say bodies, I mean the one you can see right here, and the etheric body, the astral body, the mental body, what I call the pain body, which is not necessarily a body, it's just a collection of memories and imprints and traumas and stuff that holds what we consider to be what I would consider to be pain. Eckhart Tolle talks about the pain body, and that's where I got that concept from. And it's a very palpable thing. It's a very all of these different layers. You can think of them as layers. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who's like, "Well, when we get to these extra dimensional layers of our bodies and stuff, it's not even appropriate to think of them as layers because then again we're still talking about physical energy, and this is not necessarily physical energy. This is spiritual stuff that can be considered non-local. And so when we're talking about these layers of the body, this is not necessarily something that some psychic or clairvoyant can see as a physical layer. They can, and there are layers, but when I'm talking about the pain body, it's not necessarily this, okay, now I can see your pain body and I'm gonna do all this stuff to it or whatever. It just means that is a layer of consciousness that our bodies are attuned to or not. And we dump a bunch of stuff in there, just talking about the pain body specifically. We dump a bunch of stuff in there, and it doesn't have to be thought of as a layer. It can be anywhere, right? Okay, so I just wanted to make that clear as well. I've got some other comments here. Clear, good. Yeah. Okay, so getting back to how we all feel in the morning. Um, you've got stuff hanging around. So what do you do? One of the best ways, and this is in the Akadawa literature, which you will find out there, there's only a couple books, and they're sometimes difficult to get a hold of. If you want to get a hold of those books, you can contact me, and I will contact someone else to try to get a hold of those books for you. There's a couple new ones out there. One, which is a very beautiful and very big and very expensive book, which is not specifically about the Akadawa, but it has to have something to do with it because Coyote wrote it, and I forget what that one's called, but I can link you to it. The other one is by Arlen Cage, Dr. Arlen Cage. He's sort of heading up the creation of the Akadawa schools, which are coming out of California right now, and they're just it's burgeoning, blah, blah, blah. Just starting this stuff, and he wrote a book, which is basically piggybacking off of the original Akadawa, an ancient energy for a modern age, I think is what the title is. Um, and there are techniques in there and when you get up first thing in the morning, what you're supposed to do is greet the sun. And what they have you do is poses. So just this one straight arms out for no, I think it's down or something like this to greet the morning sun. So you can sort of see the sun rising in these postures to greet the morning sun, and then to greet the afternoon sun, then to greet the late day sun, and then to greet setting sun or something like that. I forget what they all are specifically. I haven't done I haven't done too many experiments with them. I have in the past, but those should be done in the sun if possible, or outside in fresh energy if you have that option. You don't have that option, you're going to sit with your mate or your coffee and you're like, I've got this energetic lag. What do I do? So that's what I want to do for you guys now is a little technique using two varieties of Akadua. If you do not have the Akadua, but you want it, you can contact me and talk about that. Um, if you do not have the Akadua, you can do this with anything. Or you can just evoke your own sense of these energies, and I think you'll start to attach to them pretty regularly. So I'm just going to read the rest of the comments because there are some new ones down here, and then we'll get going on this practice, which is very simple. Okay, so I do have a couple comments from SJ Paz. I'm gonna assume that that's paz, as in like Spanish, meaning peace. Um, or it could be Paz, I don't know. So the question is, do you feel you can be hijacked during the night? Um, yes and no. Uh, I feel that it is definitely probable that if your field energy, all of that, is not galvanized properly, you're not vibrating strong, you're not really connecting into the stuff, the vital life force, and allowing that to move through you, which does everything for you. It not only activates, it not only clears blockages, it makes you strong. Okay? If you're not sitting in that place of power, then yes, things can come in and get attached to you and do whatever. However, I also am very strongly of the belief that no one can take your energy without your permission. So when I say that we're in a lower energetic state or we're not really like, vibing as strongly as we can, that is a choice. Okay? And that is not to diminish anyone's process because we all start somewhere. We all start usually from down here and work our way up, right? That's just the concept of it. We start being a little more low energy. We start not being able to plug ourselves into the vital life force. We start not having the Akadua, or however you want to think of it. It's just that's where we start, and it's usually easier for things to attach to. I used to have strange experiences all the time during the night. I would have half OBEs, half out of body experiences, where I would be in a semi lucid state and then I would be on my bed, and then my astral body would literally fall out and tumble to the floor and I would just be there like this little fetus that had absolutely no power and I could not get up. I didn't have enough energy, I didn't have enough awareness in my, if you want to just call it my astral field, you want to call it my astral body, my own mind and heart, because I don't think I really owned my own power back then, and so I don't think I could get to that really fully conscious state and have a body that was an astral body that was powerful and fully aware or whatever. I used to have weird experiences, just usually while falling asleep, where everything would go static in the back of my head, and it would just be like it would be like a buzzing TV when they would do that. I don't think TVs really do that anymore. They just like go black or blue. But if you're as old as I am, then you remember the TVs when you would get it onto a bad station, it would just be. So I would have that and this just mental space and this weird feeling, and then I would hear voices like out of a crowd that were overlapping each other that made no sense. And I would just hear these voices over and over and over, and I'd be like, "What are they saying to me? What are they saying to me? What are they saying? I can't figure it out." And nothing would really come through, and it was frightening and scary and really disturbing. Um, um, I would have different experiences which I felt this today I would describe them as Kundalini awakening or something of that nature when my lower chakra was trying to open up and I was resisting it because I was resistant to the energies that were around me. I was assuming that it was my partner who was sucking up my energy as we slept in the same bed together because he was so low energy. And he was also sort of anti the stuff that I was going through. And so I never felt like first of all, I never felt like I had a place to go through what I was going through. But then I also felt that he was inadvertently, but somehow directly taking this energy because I would feel like energy come through and then like I would seize up and I would actually physically jerk awake as my perineum area tensed up. And so I could look at it in a lot of ways, but I also felt that sort of has to do with being hijacked or vampirized in the middle of the night. So, yes, you can have that happen to you. You can have other things, other entities, angels, whatever you want to call them, who are curious about what you're going through. And the more that you start to switch on, especially in the beginning, the more they are curious about that and the more they do want to come and see if they can get in on some of that energy. However, I do not necessarily believe that there are so many dark, evil things out there that we have to constantly shield ourselves from them. And oh, it's like, I'm fighting all these battles because when you are in your place of power, when you are grounded, or I like to say rooted first, then grounded, stabilized. So you're all the way down there, you're plugged in. That's where you get your dynamic energy from, let's just call it that. So rooted. And then poof, root chakra is up here, stabilized, grounded, meaning you can exist on this plane and you're okay with it. Maybe not mentally or intellectually, because all of us want to turn into amorphous clouds of energy and flit around, having experiences with each other. That's why we're indigos or crystal children or whatever. Um, Grounded, and you feel okay. You feel all right. Again, maybe not intellectually because we all want stuff, but you feel grounded. That's the next step. After that, you want to, you can start shielding yourself on purpose, But I think it really starts with the rooting and getting that dynamic energy from the earth, from the heavens, from the cosmos, however you want to conceptualize it. It's pretty much the same thing, but it is as a root, as a core concept outside of ourselves. Energy comes into us from outside of ourselves, and we need to be able to have that root in order to constantly cycle through new things. Sometimes I think we perceive other entities coming in and attacking us or taking our energy or coming into our field or whatever. We perceive it that way, whereas it's actually just us not being plugged in and not getting enough energy. Okay. So we've got a couple more comments down here. Yes, thank you for joining. Um, okay, so we're gonna get right now to the Akadawa stuff, and again, this does have to do it does have to do with shielding, but again, this is more the flow. I'm talking about the morning. I'm talking about getting up with the sun, not necessarily physically. I'm not telling you you have to get up at 5 a.m. or 5:30 a.m. every day. All I'm saying is that when we get up first thing in the morning and we've got this, energetic baggage, it might clear itself away. For me, it clears itself away. Take a shower, whatever. You're gonna wash all this stuff away, not feel as bad. Have your mate, start to wake up, and then what do we do? You can do this practice sitting down. Play.
Ready to pair another device. Echo DOT HQ0 disconnected. G5
We're
disconnected.
becoming a smart house up in here. So
Connected to G5.
Now that should be playing my music. There we go. Okay, so you know how the music, if it overwhelms my voice, because I had a comment to that effect earlier. Okay, so put the coffee down. However you like to activate the Akadwa or activate energy. And if you don't have that and you don't want to do anything for this moment, for this video, then just try to be open and present to the energy that I'm exuding. Um, so, this is a non-local exercise, but if we're going to place it somewhere, we're going to place it in the heart or the solar plexus. What I like to do recently, you can't see my other hand down here, is do both. Okay? So this is our core, right? The heart is part of the core, the solar plexus is part of the core, the navel and the belly is also part of the core. I like to think of this as just one thing, okay? This is my seat of power. This is my core of power, all right? So as I'm activating these energies, I'm going to be thinking of just these areas and letting it come out and activate in just these areas and just this core, all right? And the first energy I want to do and sit with is solar Akadua. So, let yourself breathe. This is the first thing in the morning, and so you may still be tired. So, the solar Akadua is very it's very light to me. It's also warm, but it also has the ability to brighten up consciousness. It's that thing when you kind of look around and you're like, oh wow, I feel so aware right now. Everything looks so vibrant and colorful and bright. It's more of a feeling, a state of consciousness that you can do than anything. So if you like to do this, we're just activating solar Akadua in the core. And it doesn't have to be so powerful at this stage. Again, you're just waking up. You'll start to notice it when you start to feel the Akadua very strongly. Notice it from your core. Sometimes it'll move out and up and out the arms and hands. That's usually, uh-oh, okay. My stream went off for a second, but it's resumed. So you usually start to feel, because it's a light energy, it moves almost like chi. You usually start to feel it emanate outward from the heart space. This is a mudra that a lot of people use to activate the Akadwa. It can just serve as an autonomic signal. I am activating the Akadwa. So every time you do this, you don't have to think that anymore. You just do it, right? Awesome. Yes, just a hiccup. First time that's happened to my knowledge. Okay, so we're just activating the Akadwa in our core. And again, morning time. This is just be present with the energy. If you don't want to think about the core, you know, just allow yourself to move very slightly with the energy in your chair as you're sitting there. I'm just going to take a few moments out of my morning to activate this energy and to let it move through my body wherever it wants to go. Okay? Let it lighten up your entire system. It will move into the head, it will move into the feet, different spaces, if you just activate it and let it do its own thing. Especially in the early stages of working with the Akadwa or whatever, you might feel it jump around all over the place. But eventually you will find this position and you'll start to see it. Oh, okay. It sort of appears wherever I want it to appear. I can activate it in my third eye space. I can activate it in my heart space. I can activate it in my genital chakra if I want to. Any of the types, any of the varieties. But when you get to that place, you just kind of are with it and turn it on, and it sort of emanates from your entire being. If you want to, you can connect to the sun. I think this is better done outside in the sun, but you don't, again, if it's cloudy or whatever, just activate it and just link up. And feel that subtle sun energy, that subtle solar energy that is warm and nourishing, as if you're sitting in the sun. You can feel it warming your skin. It sort of penetrates the skin and nourishes your entire body. And the second thing I'm going to do is activate atmospheric. And I'm going to keep it non-local. So if I want to, let's just focus on the core or center of feeling and sensation and allow atmospheric to come through. I'm not trying to transmit these energies to you incredibly strongly or anything. I'm just being present with them. Again, this is just a light thing to get going, because often we have the sense that as soon as I get up in the morning, I should be engaging in my spiritual practice. Oh, but I'm not really ready yet. I've got to have my mate, I've got to have my coffee or my tea. I've got to sit around and talk to people on Facebook for 3 hours, and then suddenly, oh my gosh, look at the time, it's time to drop the kids off at school. And that just, we need some little space in between where we can have that interruption and say, you know what, I'm just going to sit with this energy just for a bit and allow things to move through my system, and it's going to make my day a little brighter and a little better. Okay, so when we're activating energy, I like to take the mind, which decides, the will, which decides I am activating energy, and push it down into actual physical feeling. So center yourself in your heart, feel your heart beating, and your heartbeat becomes the activation of the Akadua. Feel your breathing into the stomach, and you should breathe as low as possible. You should never even have your chest move up and down when you're breathing. It should be all down here. And allow the breathing, the bellows breath in and out, gently, 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 soft, 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 to become the feeling of the Akadua, or whatever energy you're using, to move in and out of your system. Very gentle. Okay, so again, we're activating atmospheric. Atmospheric, I should go through a little more. Solar, because it can, and rightly so, does correspond to um, the heart space in a light fashion. It can correspond to anything, but that's usually where we place it, the heart space. It is an energy of emotion as well, and it can clear emotion very strongly. We're starting with emotion first because, at least for me, I find that when I get up and I'm still in that weird space in the morning, it's like it pulls my emotions in different directions. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Oh, that sounds really exciting. I'm not ready for it. It's weird. It plays on your emotions a lot because you don't feel like you have the energy. You don't feel like the energy in you, if you have any, is ready to take on the world. And again, this is not something, I need to go whole hog into my practice first thing in the morning. It's just something very light to get us going. So again, atmospheric now. After the emotion, we're going to talk about the mind. And atmospheric has to do with the mind, very much so. And so we're activating that. And again, it does correspond somewhat to the third eye chakra or the brow chakra, but we're not sticking to that stricture, to that framework. We don't have to only think about the chakras all the time. The Akadwa is its own unique thing. So, atmospheric clears the mental space. I will actually feel it come through as like a sort of sheath below the crown, and then energy starts to move downward, and that it sort of dissipates things, and you just sort of get very clear. Now, the ultimate point of this is to be able to do it at the same time. And because we're working non-locally, you don't even have to worry about where it's coming from. When you are working locally, as in with the chakra model, you think, oh, atmospheric is up here. And you sort of activate it there, and it feels amazing, and it moves down, and wow. And solar is right here. And you activate it there, and it feels amazing, and it radiates outward, and wow. That's great. But again, they do not only correspond to these chakra areas or even the physical parts of the body. And again, things can be non-local. These layers don't necessarily have a specific plane or layer where they go, right? So be present with both energies at the same time. And if you want to use the core thing that I was talking about, I don't know why my shirts always get like uneven in one spot or another. If you want to use the heart and that's fine. When I say you can use that and be non-local, I just mean feel here, because feeling up here you can get very top heavy and whoa. Feeling way down here you can get so grounded and stable, but sometimes those energies are too thick and we don't really feel as much other energy like the Ikadawa moving through us. And so just be present right here, feel, heartbeat, breath, atmospheric, solar. No. What I find is that although we're not working locally at this moment, the mental chatter energy seems to just sort of go and be pulled down because of the anchoring of the emotional quality and the chi-like quality. I'm trying not to talk about chakras. Of the solar variety tends to be more centered in here, and the atmospheric variety tends to be more in relation to the mental activities and higher spirit and stuff like that, and electricity type of things. Um, that mental chatter and all of that seems to get pulled down into the space of solar. When you are doing that non-locally, you're not thinking of chakras or whatever. It is in that space entirely. And so they become one space. And the atmospheric seems to pull away the mental stuff and put it into the emotional stuff. The solar seems to calm the emotional stuff and make it okay. And then in that whole gestalt of energies and purposes of energies and the way they affect the things happening in us, mental processes, emotional processes, physical sensation, and all of that, um, becomes a space of clarity and becomes a space of power, because you're never more powerful than when you are completely calm. And I don't mean like, being on the verge of anger and like repressing yourself down to be calm. That's not true serenity. But when we have these abilities, we have these energies, and we can pull these things down or up or whatever, we can work in specific ways in order to help ourselves cope. And so this is my thing for the morning. Atmospheric and solar tends to get rid of that mental stuff. And again, if we're thinking of in terms of entities or little thought forms or whatever attaching to ourselves in the middle of the night because of dream space, I don't like to think of that because it's a little paranoid for me. But if we're thinking in those terms, then to do this, we're not just clearing all of that stuff away, we're transmuting it. Because these two layers of a Kandawa create a certain space together. They create an emotional space together and a mental space together that is very galvanized, strong, unique. It doesn't feel like strong, it's just very calm and calming. However, this is not as calming, and I wanted to bring this up as well, as doing grounding work with, say, obsidian. Now, if you can stand not falling asleep after you've cleared this stuff out and you've been with this solar energy and you're like, you know what? All of these things, they're gone now. I don't even have to worry about that stuff. Nothing's attached to me that I can't get rid of. Nothing can steal my energy that I don't allow to steal my energy. I'm sitting with this amazing sun basically radiating from my body and this power of mental stillness, atmospheric, radiating from my body. They become one thing and I feel good. I feel okay now. And the more you work with them, and the more you just let them be, and the more you just let them radiate out from yourself, the more you will feel stable. But not, okay, I shouldn't say stable, the more you will feel clear. And the more you will feel like your heart space as a center of emotion is what it is supposed to be, which is empathy and sympathy and connection, so that we can go out into the world and be in front of those energies from other people. Let's say in the grocery store is my prime example because I get freaking lost in the grocery store. As soon as I walk in, I'm completely overwhelmed with energy. I forget anything that I was supposed to do. I make lists so that I know which way to go. Because it's just like, huh, what? I don't know. I'm who? Sadaka's what? Where? Why? When? It's completely gone, all of it. And just I feel assaulted. I feel pulled in different directions. My mind starts going, as in like, oh my gosh, I was in the grocery store the other day, and this woman started yelling at her child, and I just started like by rote repeating what she was saying out loud. And I was in a different aisle, so I don't think she could hear me, but I was like, why am I repeating this negativity? And I think I was just like unconsciously processing it, and then, I said it out loud, and so it was like, it's not no longer unconscious, so I had to get away from him. Like, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to go back into my den. Anyway, um, when you do these kinds of things, even if it's just a light one with like a atmospheric and solar in the morning, you really feel much more able to cope. And that's what I'm really working on today because a lot of people are getting so sensitive, and some of them don't know why, some of them don't know what's going on. These people who just completely snap and go crazy, I think that they are just very, very sensitive people, and they can't handle it. This world is very difficult to handle. The reason that they can't handle it, though, I think, is because they are not trained to handle it. And we don't talk about this stuff enough to our children, or at least we probably do, the people who watch this stuff or whatever, but people are not taught to cope directly with energy, directly with emotion, directly with this intense empathy and sympathy that we might have for all of humanity, and then see absolutely no other way out but to kill ourselves. I'm sorry to be so dramatic or whatever, but that's what I think a lot of people are going through these days. They have no idea how to cope with not just the mental chatter, which can be limited to the mind, which I say is in here, but all of the psychic space that's out there, which is available to us all the time and does come into our fields, whether we know it or not. They don't know how to cope. They don't know how to galvanize their bodies and make themselves fit energetically and spiritually and emotionally and mentally fit to go out there and exist in this effed up system. I could rant forever about that kind of stuff, but this is to give you techniques. Okay, so I thought that would get another comment. So this is an excellent, excellent, excellent question. Thank you, Jay. Asks, is it normal to experience random body jerks during meditation? Just wondering if it's anything to do with an energy blockage. Down the left side, mainly leg. Yes. Yes, 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 and more yes. It is absolutely common and beneficial to experience energy jerks or physical jerks. And Good. Um, Thank you. One more comment. To experience random jerks and physical movements during meditation. Um, Meditation is basically what you will consider from the top down type of path, not necessarily even going down, but it institutes the flow of energy. More often, we're working from the higher stuff, just the mental realms, meditation, 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 using the mind, which institutes change. It's not the word I want to use. It initiates change, and it usually goes this way, right? It might be completely random. If you're using Kundalini techniques, then you're using the mind to concentrate on something. However, you're concentrating on a physical part of the body, and if you concentrate on the physical part of the body, it's typically considered from Tantra. The tantric practices, they were all about what one would consider at the time the left hand path, which meant you are in touch with physical energy, the body, sex, sexual energy, and all of that stuff, which was so taboo at the time. The right hand path was the Raja Yoga. So all this stuff up here, and we're only dealing with the mind, much more in line with the Buddhist type meditations where you're meditating on a concept or a principle. And that stuff has always been very difficult for me. It's always much easier to, what are we? We are physical beings. I have a physical body. I can feel things. Let's focus on the feelings. It's much easier. And so that's why Kundalini or tantric practices can be so powerful, because they go with the things that we are used to feeling already. One is not better than the other. Both will make your body randomly jerk in different places, or head twitches, or sometimes my left temple will just start twitching all of a sudden, and it won't stop for hours. I don't know what it has to do, what it means, anything. It's just things that happen when energy is moving through our bodies. Okay, so what I'm into is encouraging those movements. I am into getting into the flow of vital force energy, call it Kundalini, when it is moving through your system and you have a connection to it, again, past the body, past the chakra system, past the perineum, all the way down there, and you can plug in, or up here, and you can plug in up here, and you get that energy and that flow moving through you. Then all of the spontaneous movements happen, and you just get into this thing and you start to be ecstatic. That's what I'm into. Look up the book Seiki Jutsu if you really want to know what I'm going to be presenting to you guys soon. How to get into this flow and activate yourself. You can also read about Kundalini energy. Kundalini is such a specific term, and it is not a specific energy, rather than a specific framework and theories surrounding the same energy that I'm talking about. And that is the energy that does cause you to jerk. If you do, this is my opinion, okay? If you do experience random and spontaneous movements during meditation, you should play with them. Okay, so if I feel I'm meditating and something goes like that, okay, well, what is that? Concentrate on that sensation and try to loosen it up. You might find that it encourages more movement, and you're like, well, this is not meditation anymore. I'm losing my concentration. Good. I think that's an amazing thing, because so often we think that meditation is still the mind, still the mind, still the mind. I'm not thinking anything. I'm not thinking anything. Perfect concentration. And it's so male. It's so hierarchical. It's so stuffed into a box that nobody wants to really be in. Okay. Taming the mind is not necessarily uh, like whipping a lion. Okay. It's not necessarily like training a dog. Sometimes you just have to let it go free. After it's gone free, it comes back, or you at least realize, oh, there was nothing there to begin with. So what am I trying to tame? All that's left is perception. All that's left is awareness, and awareness is not hard. Awareness is not rigid. Awareness is bright, but it is also subtle in a way, because it doesn't search, it doesn't grasp, it doesn't try, it doesn't do all of these things which are functions of the will rather than the mind itself. The mind is just an open space of perception. It's just one way of perceiving, and we happen to be up there, anchored up here mostly. And that's why our minds go crazy, because we're in this new space in our collective ascension, our collective evolution, this new mental space that we're not used to. People get ideas and understand things way more quickly and easily than they used to. Did you know that people did not used to be able to read without speaking the words out loud? This is a weird thing, especially in Western culture. People were baffled at, I don't know if it was Aquinas, but he could read texts without saying them, and then he would read them back to the people, and they were astounded. Absolutely astounded by his amazing God given ability to digest information without speaking the words that were on the page and then say them back to them. Okay, this is a thing. Like, what? Consciousness is constantly evolving, and we have not been up here for very long. Now, I don't want people to get in again to this rigid framework to think we were down here in one age, we were up here at another age, we're up here at another age, now we're up here in this age, because it all happens all the time simultaneously. And so, yeah, you just need to know that. It all happens at the same time. So all of the levels of evolution and ascension are happening all the time. And we do need to go down to these levels in order to heal ourselves and release some of our old traumas. We do. Up here or whatever is usually where, I don't want to say we're comfortable, but it's usually where we're anchored, right? Okay, so I might just be going off on a tangent now. I want to make sure that I stay on point. Yes, okay, so I've almost been doing this for an hour. um, I wanted to go back to this practice. And when you do this, when you have the option of using the Akandawa like this, or you're just sensitive to energy and you can evoke these own energies for yourself, um, solar, atmospheric. Oh, that's right. I was talking about the jerking. Um, yeah, I think I pretty much covered everything I wanted to say about that. It can be looked at as moving a blockage out, even in the Taoist traditions in working with internal energy, Taoist energetics. That's not mine. I don't want to play music that's not mine, because then I get copyright things. um, when you're focusing and building up the energy in the lower dantian, they will talk about sudden spontaneous movements, and that is something to get over. And the more you build, the more you will build stability, and those things which made you spontaneously move or jerk or whatever will go away. I am not necessarily of the same opinion, because I've been doing spontaneous practices and ecstatic practices for so long that I find they can be their own thing, and that the jerks are not necessarily, that sounds weird, the jerking is not necessarily a blockage. It is simply, and can be simply, dynamic energy moving through you. It makes you want to move. And I don't think that's something to be discouraged. I think it's something to be encouraged. Now, when you do get like crazy and ecstatic and you're moving around and all that kind of stuff, or you're just meditating and you find that a certain flow comes out and maybe you're making certain mudras and you let yourself do that. This happens to me a lot if I do mudra work. I'll be sitting here and I'll just letting it, do a circulation in my body, like the water wheel, or what Western occultists and other esotericists would call the uh, Rao. It's not one of the pillars. Dang, what do they call it? The microcosmic orbit. So I'm doing that circulation and I'm holding a mudra like this. I find this happens a lot. Those mudras will go out to the side, and I just feel that energy is moving out to my greater field. And then sometimes it'll come back, opposite seas, so my left hand is on top or whatever, and you should allow it to happen, because energy moves in a lot of ways throughout our bodies and minds and hearts and all of that kind of stuff. And if you don't let it move, then really you're doing yourself a disservice because it should. Energy needs to flow. That's why I've always been more into the Taoist stuff than the yogic stuff because it seems so rigid to me. You're specifically trying to activate this type of energy, which is really, really intense, and compartmentalize it into these very rigid paths inside the body. When I feel the two energies moving around me, as in like Ida and Pingala, I feel them outside. The energy moves this way. And so for me, that more external energy flow is more important because it gets things moving. It gets us clearing ourselves out. And I like to work with energy specifically. You can work with energy specifically in meditation, but again, that higher stuff is more like, principles and whatnot. Okay, so I talked about a lot more stuff than just these Akadawa techniques. Um, I hope that that works for you to just sit there with these two energies, emotion, etheric stuff, chi. We can have a lot of physical chi hang around on us as soon as we get up in the morning, whether it comes from dreams, whether it comes from other entities, doesn't really matter. It just hangs around. Stagnant chi, dirty chi, whatever you want to call it. And again, showering helps. I'm a huge proponent of salt baths. I want to get into that. And it's like the first thing I want when I write my book, whatever it's going to be, is like I'm a huge proponent of taking salt baths. And all you have to do is go buy Epsom salt from the store. It's amazingly healing. We actually absorb more nutrients through our skin than we do by ingesting them. By ingesting minerals, and I mean specifically like minerals like potassium and things like that, magnesium. Um, by ingesting them, especially in pure form, like in health pills or whatever, like say I'm just taking calcium, most of that is actually released through excrement. And so we don't necessarily need to take as many supplements as we think we need to take because not a lot is absorbed that way. I think it's really ridiculous of the Western system the way that it's come up with vitamins. Vitamin means nothing. First of all, it means vital mineral, and yet things that are not minerals are called vitamins. Whoa, totally wacky. Besides that, the way that it came out, I think in the early 20th century was like, your body needs this, so here's a pill of its pure form and take it. That's not necessarily how the body works. The body does not absorb things in their pure form very well. If I eat a bunch of potassium, it's going to come out in a not very pleasant way, you know? Um, so, first of all, we need to get that from our food, fresh food, because that's how we absorb stuff better when we ingest it. And then also, I think things like salt baths or potassium, magnesium baths, putting that kind of stuff in there is an interesting way to allow our bodies to absorb more stuff, if we want to think of it that way. I think of it that way, but I also think of it as when you get into the salt bath, you're almost like it's like getting into the ocean. I energize it first. I try to put as big and strong a field on it as possible. I do the Akadua, I do Seiki. I let the vital energy force move through this giant, which is basically a liquid crystal now that you put a bunch of salt in it. I do essential oils, and then I get into the bath and I just try to relax everything. You have to physically try to relax and physically try to relax your actual skin. Allow your pores to relax. As you do that, then your muscles will relax as well. Relax your muscles and try to extend them out to your skin. Relax the skin. It can be from either direction, but you do that and then you start to absorb all of this stuff, and it's just like, oh, like it's so amazing. Not just in a relaxing way. And first thing in the morning, sometimes the last thing you want to do is relax because you just go back to sleep again. But just to me, it's so energetically powerful to do a salt bath. And people need to know that when you have an entire bathtub full of water, you should have at least two kitchen sized cups of salt in it. Whether it's sea salt or just salt from, I don't recommend using the iodized salt, table salt or whatever, but if that's all you have, it's actually okay. All right? You're really, really feeling weird, you want to like get all this stuff out, it is okay. Use an entire Morton's thing of salt, an entire one. You have to really, really salinate the water. Or if you're using Epsom salt, there's not a lot of sodium in it. It's mostly just magnesium. I think that's what it is. Yeah. Um, you can use 2 or 3 cups of it, and it's super super cheap at the store. And it's an old remedy for making your muscles feel better. It makes bruises go away. Okay, that's something that people got away from using older remedies. They just want to go to the doctor and take a pill these days, and I find it so weird. But we do ourselves a huge disservice by getting away from those things. Taking a bath used to be a cure for things, you know? We don't think that way anymore, and I think we should at least a little bit. So, tons of Epsom salt. You can use a whole bag if you're just going to do this like once a month or something. Use a whole bag of Epsom salt. Usually they come in bags about like this big, and put the whole thing in there. Energize the water, or just put intention into it. You don't have to if you're not into that. Get in there and just allow yourself to soak all that up. Allow all of this weird energy to slough off of you. Slough. It's a weird word spelled with a GH. And you'll feel so much better for it. Okay, so after you do that, try sitting in the sun and allowing some energies to activate. Again, if you have the Akadwa, I find solar and atmospheric to be perfect for this kind of stuff. It clears the mind in a way that's not vacating. So the atmospheric seems to clear the mind in a way that's just. It's not like, oh, I have no more mind anymore. It's not a lack of consciousness, it's a clearing and a stilling of all the weird things that go on in our mental space. And the solar energy is like very much to me relates to physical chi. It will bolster or galvanize, I like to use that word, physical chi and the physical chi in your body. It will also take the negative stuff and the stagnation and just get rid of it. Okay? The emotion is chi. Chi is emotion. I think I need to make that clear. When we talk about chi energy or whatever, it very much has to do with emotion. Okay? And so a lot of the stuff that we end up with, whether it's from the dream space or extra dimensional entities or whatever, a lot of the stuff that we end up with is emotional chi baggage, if you want to think of it that way. Okay. And so the solar kind of just not just dissipates, it transmutes, it latches on to all of that stuff and it makes it okay, you know? And then with all this clearing out, clearing out, clearing out, then it's just sort of not the same problem anymore. Or it's completely gone. And you're wondering why you were so strange this morning. So after that, if you want to go further and you're doing this kind of thing, then we can start with the rooting and the stabilizing work. Okay, and that's when we go into the grounding, and I would use obsidian for that. Another video. Okay, thank you for watching, guys.